We continue with the 39th chapter of the book of Yirmiyahu, a definitely terrible chapter. And as we sit at a very terrible and scary time, there are glimmers of hope in this chapter, and that's what we all have to look for as well. So we're chapter 39, Bashana Chit, Tzidkiyahu Melech Yehuda, Bachodesh Hasiri, Ba Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel, V'chol Chilo El Yerushalayim Vayatzuru Aleha. So we've heard this already, that it's in the ninth year of King Tzidkiyahu's reign, in the 10th month, that Nebuchad, here he's called Nebuchadrezzar. Certain places there must have been scribal errors. Usually it's called Nebuchadnezzar. You can see how a nun and a resh, we forget to put, or you don't put it so well, the bottom of the resh. So he and all of his armies come and they surround Yerushalayim, a siege. Bastei Asrei Shana, and in the 11th year, L'tzidkiyahu b'chodesh ha'revi'i, b'tisha l'chodesh huvka'a ha'ir. So now it's the 11th year, and it's the 9th day of the 4th month. We have a fast day on the 17th day of the 4th month, Shivasar B'Tammuz, it's called. In the time of the first Beit HaMikdash, the Babylonians entered Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, on the 9th day of that month. Why we have the 17th day of the month is a difficult question, but the rabbis in the Talmud say that the second temple, the Romans came in on the 17th. Vayavo kol sarei melech Bavel vayeshvu b'shar hatavech nergal sharatzer samgar nevo sarschim rav saris nergal sharetzer rav mag b'chol sheritz melech Bavel. So it's telling us all of the officers were there. This was taken as a very serious battle, even though they were the world power, and this was a small little principality at this time. Hardly even an empire, hardly even a true country with all of Yisrael over 100 years ago eliminated, gotten rid of, exiled, and even with much of Yehuda at this point already destroyed. Continuing in verse 4, so when King Tzidkiyahu sees that, all of the soldiers fled and there's nobody to protect him, he goes through the garden and goes through gates and sets out towards the Arava. It's not clear exactly which gates he leaves through, but in yesterday's chapter, in chapter 38, there was a discussion with Yirmiyahu where Tzidkiyahu has a private, secretive conversation with Yirmiyahu and says to him, "What should I do?" And Yirmiyahu says, "Go and surrender. If you surrender, you will live. And things won't be great, but you'll submit and you'll die like a decent human being. But if you stay here in the city, it will be a disaster. That's what's going to happen, and the city will burn, and you personally will be a disaster." And Tzidkiyahu is too scared. Talked yesterday and 2 days ago about him as not being a very strong king. He can't fully protect Yirmiyahu. He listens to what everybody is saying from here to there, and so he doesn't do it. And so now he tries to run away, which is what God told him not to. So the Chaldeans pursue him and they overtake him right outside Yericho. Yericho, of course, the first place that the Jews captured in the book of Yoshua, the first place that we enter, that we place our stamp on the land, where God makes the walls come down. So think of here, right? As here now, the walls of Jerusalem have come down. We're running out of the land. Obviously, that's what's going on here with the same place. And they take Tzidkiyahu the king. Vayalu el Nebuchad, Retzar melech Bavel, Rivlata beretz Hamat, Vayidaberoto mishpatim. And they capture him and they bring him to Rivla, which is in Hamat, and they put him on trial. And again, why is he being put on trial? Well, we have to think. Tzidkiyahu was the puppet ruler for Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar removes Yechonia, sends him to Bavel. He's in jail, and he places Tzidkiyahu as king. And we see Tzidkiyahu, why he would place him as king. He wasn't a strong ruler. He was influenced, and he was supposed to be a puppet king, but eventually Jews rebel, so he's not that, and therefore he's put on trial. Vayishchat melech Bavel et bnei Tzidkiyahu berivla le'einav, that kol chorei Yehuda shachat melech Bavel. So what does the Babylonian king do? He kills all of the children of Tzidkiyahu, while Tzidkiyahu was witnessing it, and all of the nobles as well. Think about in the past, when Yechonia left, Yechonia was exiled, and there were Jews who were exiled, and there were attempts to assimilate them into Babylonian life, Babylonian culture. We'll read more about that in the book of Daniel. Here, that's not being done. The nobles here are being killed. Vet einei Tzidkiyahu iver. And what does he do? Tzidkiyahu is blinded. Vayasruhu b'nechushatayim lavioto bavela. And they placed fetters around him that he will be brought to Babylon. And just as Yirmiyahu said, if you don't leave the city, the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, they burn down the palace and the houses by fire and tear down the walls. And the remnant of people that were left in the city, and the defectors who had gone over to the remnant, right, they were sent to Babylon. And they're brought back by Nebuzadran. We don't know who exactly Nebuzadran is, but he's Nebuchadnezzar's general. Umin ha'am hadalim asher ein lahem muma hishir Nebuzadran rav tabachim ba'aretz Yudah v'yitain lahem kramim v'geivim bayom hahu. And just like happened in the past, 597, when they took all of the, many times they took the potent people, they took the strong people, they took the people who could start a rebellion, and they brought them to Bavel. So here too, they take, after massacring and killing, they take many people back to Bavel. And who is left in Israel? The weak, the Nabuchs. And so what does Nebuzadran do? He gives them vineyards and fields at the time. And here's this first glimmer of hope, right? We're not fully destroyed. Yerushalayim might be destroyed. The temple might be destroyed. That's not even discussed here, the temple. This chapter is not about the temple. But there are people left, and they are given fields, they are given vineyards, they can continue to live. It's not all decimation. And just now Nebuchadnezzar tells Nebuzadran, or had told him probably previously, when you go and you find Yirmiyahu, take care of him. Don't do him any harm. Do whatever he asks you. Why exactly? Well, word must have gotten to them that there's this guy in the city who for years has been saying, submit to the king of Babylon, submit, submit, submit. Whether that came out in 597 with Yechonia, whether that came out from the people who left the city based on his advice, and maybe the Babylonians were asking, well, why did you leave the city? Why are you coming to us? So he knows that somehow, in some way, they have this belief that Yirmiyahu is on his side. Yirmiyahu is not on the side of the Babylonians. He just knows that the correct way to act is not to rebel, but to submit. So Nebuzadran and other, leaders, commanders of the king of Babylon, they send. So what do? They take Yirmiyahu out of the prison compound. Remember, the prison he's now in is a relatively safe prison. He's been put there by the king if the king has left Yirmiyahu in this prison, and prison might be the wrong word, to protect Yirmiyahu, quarantine him, to keep him away from the people who don't like what he's saying and have beaten him and have threatened to kill him, have thrown him into a much worse place, into a pit. And what do? They send for Gedaliah, the son of Achikam. If you remember, the first time Yirmiyahu is when there's a lynch mob after him, and it was about chapter 21 or so, the person who saves him is Achikam ben Shaphan, is the person who saves Yirmiyahu from that. And here as well, so it's a friend of his family, Gedaliyahu, who they send for. And Gedaliah, of course, is going to become the head of the Jewish community, those poor people who were left following the destruction. And God came to Yirmiyahu while he was still in the prison. He said, so he says, go tell Elimelech the Cushi. And Elimelech the Cushi was in the last chapter. Yirmiyahu was taken and he was thrown into a pit. And Melech HaKushi says to the king, what's going on here? This is crazy. How could you throw Yirmiyahu into a pit? How could you do this? They might kill him. We can't have him killed. He's a prophet. He's a Navi Hashem. And he goes, takes 30 men. The king allows it, and he goes and gets Yirmiyahu out of the pit, and they bring him back. And it is at that point that he's then placed into that quarantine protection sort of jail is not the right word, to keep Yirmiyahu from being killed. So now Evid Kushi is told, that the God of Israel says, I will fulfill my word concerning this city, right? There's going to be disaster. It's going to be horrors. The Hitzilticha vayamahu numadai, but I will save you. And you will not be delivered. So there will be many people who are delivered into slavery, who will be killed, who will be living terrible lives, who will be exiled. You, Eved, you, Eved Melech Hakushi, you will be saved. Interesting to think he's Eved Melech, because Eved Melech means the servant of the king. You can see that maybe it's an illusion that he was not just the servant of the king Tzidkiyahu, but maybe it means he was the servant of God by saying the king. And he says, Ki maleit amaletcha, we're in verse 18. I will rescue you, and you will not fall by the sword. You will escape with your life because you trust in me, declares God. And so in this chapter of desecration, of killing, of murder, of the city being burned down, there is a glimmer of hope. Hope is not lost forever. Now, the hope is not great hope. Evan Melech is not told like 10 chapters ago that the Jews are going to return and there's going to be Yehuda and Yisrael and kings and, we didn't quite say the lion will sleep with the lamb like in the book of Yeshaya. He's told the best you can hope for is to stay alive, is to survive. This is not about becoming, this is not building the utopian society. This is just hope that you will survive. But there is that glimmer. There will be people who will survive. There is a chance with the mention of Gedaliah, and there's a chance with the poor people who are given the vineyards, who are given the fields to bring back the land to life in some way. That hope remains there for this community at this time. We know, of course, it won't last forever, but that hope is certainly there at this time. And just if we think about who the people are, one of the complaints of Yeshai and Yirmiyahu was the wealthy taking advantage of the poor. The poor remain, they have a chance. Gedaliah, whose father saved Yirmiyahu, and Elimelech, who saved Yirmiyahu. The people who it seems remain loyal to God, they are not being tortured, they are not being punished. And so we go through this difficult time, and it really is one we need to find the glimmers of hope that we can in this chapter. And our hope, of course, is that unlike back then when the glimmers of hope were shattered in later chapters, I hope I'm not giving it all away, that we hope that the glimmers of hope that we see today will be ones that last for many, many years to come.